between 2017 and today, there's been like 5 generations of so-called ETH killers that are like, yeah, let's go kill some ETH and kill ETH and be the second blockchain, or maybe the first blockchain. And part of the frustration that happened in the community, probably during the witch hunt, was like, yeah, but look at all those foundations. They are doing much better than us. They are more aggressive than us. They want to win.
One thing that I find is really detrimental to communicating our culture is trying to put blockchain somewhere on the political spectrum. Doing this isolates a lot of people and makes people believe things about crypto that aren't true.
Oh, the Ethereum Foundation actually made some pretty cool things and did some really interesting research they did not really capitalize much on. For me, a big question of whether or not this has become a reaction to price not going up. And that's kind of like the big question. I think that's like what caused the most amount of rage and anger, and why like people had this like crazy behavior on Twitter and whatever else.
If you're looking to stake your crypto with confidence, look no further than Chorus One. More than 150,000 delegators, including institutions like BitGo, Pantera Capital and Ledger, trust Chorus One with their assets. They support over 50 blockchains and are leaders in governance on networks like Cosmos, ensuring your stake is responsibly managed. Thanks to their advanced MEV research, you can also enjoy the highest staking rewards. You can stake directly from your preferred wallet, set up a white label node, restake your assets on EigenLayer or Symbiotic, or use their SDK for multi-chain staking in your app. Learn more at chorus.one and start staking today.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Gnosis, a collective dedicated to advancing a decentralized future. Gnosis leads innovation with Circles, Gnosis Pay, and Metri, reshaping open banking and money. With Hashi and Gnosis VPN, they're building a more resilient, privacy-focused internet. If you're looking for an L1 to launch your project, Gnosis Chain offers the same development environment as Ethereum with lower transaction fees. It's supported by over 200,000 validators, making Gnosis Chain a reliable and credibly neutral foundation for your applications. Gnosis DAO drives Gnosis governance, where every voice matters. Join the Gnosis community in the Gnosis DAO forum today. Deploy on the EVM-compatible Gnosis chain or secure the network with just one GNO and affordable hardware. Start your decentralization journey today at gnosis.io.
We're here at DappCon, and we're here for a Epicenter at DappCon panel, and the people who joined me here graciously today are Nixo, previously from eStaker, now at the Ethereum Foundation, Josh, whom you may know better as the blockchain socialist from Twitter, and Jerome de Tychey from Cometh and ETH France and ECC and kind of like all things, French Ethereum. Fantastic. So maybe we can do a round of introductions first. Maybe let's start with you, Nixo. Kind of give us the TLDR on yourself.
Okay, so I used to be a scientist. I went from oceanography to working in the Ethereum ecosystem because I got very obsessed with Ethereum staking and Ethereum in general. And so I left oceanography to work in staking. Worked in staking for a few years, was the executive director at eStaker before moving to protocol support at the Ethereum Foundation. And the way that happened is when you advocate for solo stakers, it means that you have to be aware of research that's going into the protocol. And I ended up becoming close with researchers and core devs, and I wanted to help support that process of upgrades going into forks. And so protocol support was a very direct way to do that.
Cool. And we'll talk about kind of recent developments at the foundation after the intro. So kind of you are very well placed as an inside source here.
Perfect.
And Josh, you are the blockchain socialist. We kind of we touched base on this kind of just before the podcast and kind of tried to rank different networks by political affiliation, and we kind of landed on the fact that Ethereum is kind of in the more leften side of the hemisphere, but kind of it's a lonely stance, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's
you have friends.
I have friends, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a few years ago taken the unfortunate stance of putting my flag down and saying that I'm the blockchain socialist after being kind of frustrated after many years of being involved in the crypto space and working in it, and also feeling a lack of good I thought what was needed kind of from a left-wing perspective analysis on the crypto space. So that the Blockchain Soldiers is the name of my blog and podcast, where I share a lot of things, and sometimes I tweet. And but I also build through Bread Cooperative. We build a lot on Gnosis chain as well. So yeah, I think coming from a perspective of both, like following everything from a media point of view, I'm open about my stance on things, and then also from building stuff on various chains.
Tell us about Bread Chain.
Yeah. So we recently announced our rebrand to Bread Cooperative because there's nothing to lose. We only have our chains to lose, right? And so, yeah, basically it's a project, it's a cooperative network of kind of politically aligned projects. We kind of use this term post-capitalism to frame the things that we build. I think yesterday at DappCon, I presented on solidarity primitives. So this is kind of like the technological conceptual framework in how we think about building applications, thinking of technology as something that facilitates relationships between people and institutions. DeFi primitives being, cool in their own rights, but they are ones that generally facilitate relationships of finance. So trying to, I use the term kit bashing. So taking things that maybe had a certain purpose for one thing, but mashing them together so that they produce different logics that don't necessarily involve kind of a individualistic profit motivation in using technology.
What induced you to kind of put down your flag? Because kind of like, I think kind of the politics of the space has shifted very markedly over the years. So kind of, I think there's always been kind of the libertarian faction, but I mean, that's still there, and kind of like the crypto anarchists and so on. I would probably also kind of count into that camp, despite the fact that kind of like they're not kind of like economic libertarians per se, but kind of we've seen a huge influx of more conservative forces, right, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in large part it's kind of more people have become a lot more vocal or emboldened in their conservatism. But yeah, I think for me, I mean, I originally started everything anonymously. So for me, it was just kind of like, someone's got to do it. I don't really want to do it and associate my name with it because I had a corporate job and I didn't want to like explain to my boss what I was doing. So I did it anonymously, but eventually I left that job, and then I was asked to write a book. And they said I have to be public if I want to publish the book. And so I had to come out of the anon closet. And yeah, so for me, it was kind of I think there's a certain empowerment for others as well. I think what I found is that there were a lot of people in the crypto space who were uncomfortable with certain political aspects when being involved in it. And so by being the person to kind of just be open about it, then I think it gave other people more confidence in like being able to express that. So, I mean, I constantly get, messages from people of just like, thank you. It's not like, thank you for showing. It's not like all just an alt-right, wormhole or whatever like that. So yeah, I've ended up becoming that, but there's more than just me. Just to say that, like, I think share the similar politics and are also involved in the crypto space and have the critiques and also the different interests as to what is being pursued in the space. As I think there's a difference depending on your politics sometimes on the things that you're kind of interested in, because it's a very large spectrum of things you can do with the technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of socialism, this is also something that kind of, it depends really starkly where you're based, whether this is something that people perceive as an insult. So kind of here in Germany, kind of like being a socialist is kind of like being middle of the road. Whereas kind of when you go kind of like into the US, it's basically an insult to call someone a socialist. So
the territory is being challenged now in America. I think American politics is like very much in flux at the moment with, I think, especially starting in 2016, I mean, Trump and Bernie Sanders definitely kind of broke the political spectrum a bit, or what was the norm in the US for so many decades. But so things are being challenged. And yeah, and now we have, I mean, if you're keeping up in New York City, the leading mayoral candidate is I don't know if he said he's a socialist, but a lot of his policies are aligned in that way.
Cool. Speaking of socialism, Jerome.
Oh my God. What a transition. So on the political spectrum, I think I see it in the bleeding heart libertarians, libertarianism, but let's mutualize as much as we can, because there's another thing that just works better if we mutualize the risk. But yeah, so for a quick intro, I've been in the space for about 10 years now. I started out as a miner. I'm an economist by training. I was very appealed by the idea of doing money without central banks. That's why I love circles. I think it's an excellent idea to approach the minting of money the other way around. So I did some mining. I switched to Ethereum because I had a lot of GPUs back in the days. I created Ethereum France to organize a bit of the French community around how we can mine, how we can do smart contracts, how we can do things this way. I started to work in the space, first at EY, then at Consensus, then at Ledger, then at my own company, Cometh. And I created ETH to bring everybody together in Paris or in France or in Brussels or in Cannes regularly every year, roughly at the same time. So we get a get-together time. And Ethereum as a nonprofit has been running for about 10 years now, and we will happily party for the 10 years anniversary of Ethereum in a few weeks, and see everyone at ETH in 10 days now. Well, the 30th of June. Yep.
Yeah, it is coming up pretty soon. Give us the recap of what's going to happen at ECC this year.
So every big conference like to say we are the biggest. So let's say we are the biggest.
It's the biggest in Europe, I think. It's
by far the biggest in Europe. So conference-wise, we can expect several thousands of people. Like last year at Brussels, we had 6K people coming to the conference. We have a few more tickets open than 6K this year. So let's say, at ETC, you'll see 6K people with a band, probably quite more. People are coming to Cannes also, even if they don't showing up to ECC, because we have a lot of side events. Like last year in Brussels, we had 600 side events. This year, we try to be a bit more careful about the side events we list. So there is ECC Week that's listing a couple of vested side events that we have checked out. Okay, this is real and so on. But you have lots of lists available on Crypto Nomad, Luma, and so on and so forth. So lots of side events, lots of people coming, but also lots of speakers, 360 plus that are going to speak at ETC. And then right after ETC, you have the ETH Global Cannes Hackathon. Mm-hmm. And so, a full week of events in the south of France between the 30th of June to the 6th of July. And, venue-wise, this is going to be happening in the Festival Palace, which is the same place that gets to host the Film Festival of Cannes. So you will walk the same carpet as, let's take people from different political spectrum. Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, I don't know who is the main leftist actors in the US. So lots of different people have been walking the red carpet. So same place. It's also quite a small city with a lot of accommodation. So when it's organizing a festival or a big event like ETC, you roughly have 20% of the population that are in the town that are coming for this event specifically. So you will have a town that's blockchain minded for about a week. And also the city of Cannes has been very, very welcoming to the idea of crypto. It's a right-wing mayor, right-wing center mayor called David Lisnard that has been really pro-crypto, saying this is the future, we cannot miss this train. So let's make sure we onboard all the shops to accept crypto, to be friendly of crypto and so on, which was very, very positive to see in the organization.
Did that actually happen? Kind of like, can I go into a shop and kind of like pay with?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed. There is a local startup that created a point of sale approach to paying with crypto. They're based in Marseille, I think. Yeah, based in Marseille. And so they partner with the city hall to equip a lot of the different shops. When we came before the operation in February, I was already able to pay with crypto for lunch. And you will see on the front door big circled sticker that says crypto accepted here in blue and gold. So you'll know that you are going to be in a good place. But it's going to be pretty nice.
And what kind of crypto do they accept? Is it very inclusive, or is it kind of like, you can pay with USDC here?
So I paid in ETH.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly. I didn't proof check the solution. Like, can you pay in?
This is it's also an interesting challenge for a shop, right? Kind of like which shit coins do you accept in exchange for your goods and services? So it's.
So ETH as an event tries every year to accept crypto for payment. And event organizer, like maybe you know the problem, making sure that a large, heavy-duty ticketing system accept crypto. So you have two inbounds of payment: the classic payment with credit card and the payment with crypto. Making sure that those two are getting reconciled and properly integrated is kind of hard first, and then accepting any type of tokens to be performed as payment is another challenge. And if you add on top of that from an accounting perspective, you prefer to receive this on this L2 or on Gnosis or on Polygon, whatever, as a specific output, you add another layer of complexity. So you need to do a cross-chain payment and so on. So we tried something at ETH this year. It's working-ish, but it's definitely a big challenge. And if you take the point of sale at a brick and mortar shop, them having to handle all this complexity is super complex.
And I assume it's also kind of it's converted on the spot, and they actually receive.
I think
tables,
so, yeah.
Right? I mean, so, kind of like you don't make them holders themselves.
Yeah, I mean, from if you. Like the first bars that accepted crypto in France, or for example in Paris, you have a few like this. They just show you a QR code linked to Coinbase, and they're like, okay, scan this, send me some Bitcoin, send me some Ether, like, yeah, whatever, I'll just keep it. And in the book, they show that okay, I sold you like 20 euros of beer, and they keep the thing. I wonder if they, I probably don't. They probably switch immediately to euro and so on.
At DappCon, we don't accept credit card payments.
Oh.
So you actually have to pay on chain. I think kind of like if you actually show up to the venue, then kind of we let you pay with a card. But basically, if you buy ahead of time, and it's actually proved really good fun, a kind of really good filter for getting the right kind of people here. And I think kind of as someone who's kind of built in this space also for years, I mean, if the tech is so bad that not even we ourselves are willing to use it, there's something kind of that we urgently need to work on. But
No, I agree with you. It's a strong stance, and it's adverse selection. Like you only have people that already have a wallet that show up to DappCon at the end of the day.
This is correct, yeah.
But at the same time, if you are in the 5 of thousands and 6 of thousands of tickets,
it's a different
you need to use professional services for the ticketing, and they look at you like, crypto, okay.
We use Unlock, and I know you've worked with them in the past too, but kind of I cannot endorse them enough. They are fantastic. So if any of you kind of run a crypto event, Unlock, they're your guys. Happy to make an intro.
Well, yeah, we went back and forth with different ticket providers that were able to handle our load, and now we have a crypto integration in a ticketing provider. Let's see how the check-in at the conference works before I can endorse them.
Yeah. So, okay.
Let's see.
Cool. Who are your headliners this year?
The usual suspects. I mean, everybody that has something to say at ETH usually gets to say it. Like we have most of the major protocols are here. Most of them are also showcasing something that they recently released. That was the plan initially, to have a recurring conference happening every year at the same time, which means that from a production perspective, you prepare to do a product announcement around ETH. Mm-hmm. So we have people from most of the DeFi protocols, most of the big ones. And we have also a few people from the Ethereum Foundation that are coming. Thomas is coming, Vitalik is coming like every year. And I'm very excited by the release of V4 of Aave. Like Stani has been supporting us for a long time as well. And ETC is also a place where you have smaller rooms from 50 to 60 seats. And we welcome a lot of researchers that come and showcase what they have been building in the recent weeks and recent months. So it's also pretty cool if you want to stay updated with what's going on in the research space. What I'm personally very excited is to see Web2 companies coming at ETC and sponsoring. So yeah, Robinhood has been one of the main sponsors this year, and they have a lot of things to announce. So it's pretty nice to see that. Yeah, it's showing that we are getting in a new maturity at the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. This is super interesting to hear. There's other tiny things we should probably talk about. So kind of the Ethereum Foundation, they a week or two ago, they kind of announced a major restructuring. Kind of some people were laid off, kind of teams were merged. Maybe, Nixo, do you want to give us the rundown of what happened? And then kind of we can talk about kind of like what's the community reaction has been like.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, there are like different parts of the EF. One of them was the protocol research and development side, and there was a restructuring of that Ethereum R&D section, and it's just called protocol now. And they sort of restructured the teams. They dissolved some teams. They moved some people to different places on teams, and it was kind of a shock for people because I haven't been at the EF very long. I joined last September. And so the majority of my experience with the EF has been sort of as an outsider. But since last September, I sort of like the EF was sort of like this mystery entity to me before I joined. And like, you don't really know what the structure is. You don't really know who works there. You don't really know how big it is. And so when I joined, the first thing I started doing is I started keeping lists of people. And I was like, okay, who are you? Where do you work? And I was sort of like trying to parse out like who worked where. And one of the things I did is we were running our first internship program. And the interns were sort of like, okay, but like I'm applying for an R&D position, but I really don't know like what teams are there. And I was like, yeah, me neither. So I created like this blog and I sent it to all the researchers and the development teams. And I was like, is this correct? And sort of forced them to like come up with a description of their teams. And I think that was like part on the way to like the EF discovering like it needs to sort of publicize who works there. It needs to publicize what the teams are because it makes it a lot easier for people to collaborate with research at the EF and development at the EF if you know what the teams are and you know what the points of contact are. So I published this blog post for the interns. It was helpful for the entire ecosystem, I think. So the restructuring has been, it came as kind of a shock to people because there was this feeling when I joined that like the EF was sort of like tenured. Like when you work there, you just kind of work there as long as you want to work there.
No, like Hotel California.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that this is really a shift in culture at the EF to be like, you know, like we're going to make sure that teams are efficient. We're going to make sure that like people who are there their projects are still relevant to the ecosystem. And we're going to constantly reevaluate if those projects are relevant. But on the other side, there was sort of like this growing narrative in the EF, like we need to grow and develop with the ecosystem. And like the Ethereum ecosystem and the crypto ecosystem in general looks so different than what it looked like in 2017, 2018, 2019. And so if the EF still looks like exactly what it looked like back then, we're not growing. And there's no way that Ethereum as an ecosystem would keep up without like its best steward growing with it. So yeah, I think people are pretty stoked about changes at the EF after getting over like the initial shock. And like, of course, like not everybody, some people were let go. And so like it was sort of bittersweet for people. Yeah, but I am very bullish on these changes, and I'm very excited to see that like they're basically when Tomasz and Xiaowei came in, it sort of represented this change that was happening at the EF where there was like this subtraction philosophy and it was sort of like infinite garden, and Xiaowei and Tomasz came in, and Xiaowei sort of has been at the EF for a long time. Tomasz was at Nethermind, still is at Nethermind. And it was like this yin and yang. And Tomasz sort of represents the mercenary part of the ecosystem, and Xiaowei sort of represents the missionary. And I think that it's important for the Ethereum Foundation not to just be like center missionary or mercenary. I think it's important for them to have both so that we have representatives from both, like sort of like balancing each other out. And I think so far it is going very well.
I'm super happy to hear that. Jerome, you've been extremely vocal in your criticism of the Ethereum Foundation. You gave a talk titled "What I Don't Like About Ethereum," and where you mostly talked about this. So, what's your kind of external view on these changes?
So I've been extremely vocal. I think in a I hope
polite way,
absolutely, in a kind polite and constructive manner.
100%. So, and I think it's been very needed. So it's
there's been a witch hunt back in November, December, January against the EF, And I pity the ones that participated actively and harshly around this. But it was like a hard moment to go through, I think, as an ecosystem. Yet what I don't like about Ethereum, it was initially an ask from Joseph Jelasic from ETH told me like, hey, this was a fun talk that happened at DCC a few years ago. Would you like to do this talk? And I was like, yep, let's do something like this, because there are things that I don't like about Ethereum, things that are changing, and I'm happy to see some changes right now. And we had an history at the ecosystem of doing our dirty laundry in public. But there's different way of doing the dirty laundry, proposing things that can change, proposing things that work and don't work. And I think it's a good way to do it now. So about the changes at the foundation, I'm very happy of what I'm seeing unravel right now. I think one of the things that got me into Ethereum and got me bullish and dedicating the past 10 years of my life growing. Like I think when I'm asked what is my mission, I'm like, I want to bring more people into the blockchain. I want to bring more people into Ethereum by organizing events, by doing some custody stuff, some wallet as a service stuff, helping different things. And I want this technology to succeed. And I feel like there is a strong appeal in very brilliant minds, very talented people, very dedicated people into this ecosystem, because when you deep dive into it and you look at how welcoming the community is, you feel like, hey, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want to work on. Like I want to be part of this project. And this also comes with a realization that we are at different stages of maturity of our ecosystem. Like Nixo said it very elegantly, like Ethereum now doesn't look like Ethereum before. Like in 2017, like you just joined the foundation and you're like, yeah, it's a tenure. But between 2017 and today, there has been like 5 generations of so-called ETH killers that are like, yeah, let's go kill some ETH and kill ETH and be the second blockchain, or maybe the first blockchain. And part of the frustration that happened in the community, probably during the witch hunt, was like, yeah, but look at all those foundations. They are doing much better than us. They are more aggressive than us. They want to win. Completely ignoring this wasn't a solution. And people coming in and coming out of the foundation is a net positive to the ecosystem, because someone that has been working on the foundation for a few years and now is on the market or joining a new team come with a lot of network at the foundation and a huge know-how about how it works regarding the R&D project at the foundation, what's coming up and so on. So having an inflow of people from the foundation into the project that are developing right now is very positive for the ecosystem as well. The lack of transparency that was at about the budget of the foundation was something that was easy to critique. And now that we have an organigram, we have a much clearer direction. It's being received very positively among ETH holders, ETH blockchain builders, and the general public as a whole. So. Those changes were expected, and I'm glad they are being unraveled. But there's many things that I don't like about Ethereum. Way more things that I like about Ethereum, so I'm staying and I don't.
We'll get to them in a second. So I think I was also vocal in the debate on kind of like Ethereum culture, kind of like when kind of all of this got brought up, because I think kind of like a lot of the voices we were hearing were needlessly antagonistic. Yeah. And I think kind of, I'm also very much not in the camp. There were also a lot of people who clamored very loudly that the Ethereum Foundation doesn't do enough marketing. And I think kind of like there's, in my view, kind of marketing is not in scope for the foundation, right? And I think kind of, I know that there are foundations who do this, but I think kind of like critiquing the fact that there was not enough vision and kind of the technical roadmap, and kind of there was no clear narrative about kind of like where we're trying to go and kind of like what we're trying to build. I would 100% second that. And I think kind of like the infinite garden narrative was also a little bit of a cop-out, because basically it includes everything and nothing, right? It's kind of like, what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? So in defense for people that were harsh, sometimes when you feel like you are not being heard, sometimes when you feel like things need to change and you have no way of making yourself heard, you begin to shout and you begin to insult. So when you resort to insult and so on, it's not a good sign, but it's also not a good sign from the people that were supposed to listen to not even give attention. So maybe there was a kind of ivory tower feeling, like, hey, we're just nice and doing good. Why people are so mean to us at the foundation? Like it does, yeah. So it doesn't make us look good for the general public for sure. But still, sometimes you have to resort to this kind of push, unfortunately.
You disagree, Nixo?
Absolutely. I think the mob mentality that happened on Twitter last fall was horrible. Like
It was horrible,
that
yeah.
it was not productive. It was actually counterproductive to decisions that were being made at the time. And I think that the way that especially like trusted people in the ecosystem, people who have very loud voices, very trusted voices on crypto Twitter, were being really irresponsible with the way that they were handling this situation. And it made a lot of people jump in, and it enabled a lot of gross behavior.
Yep. I don't want to excuse any of those behavior at all. But I think from this kind of, when we are at this scale of bad talk and bad debates, I think it's also interesting to say like, hey, how this could have been avoided? Like what could have been done to be more reactive and to be more proactive on this front? Now, from a marketing standpoint, as a whole, like I think we have to accept that we are not in our teenage years anymore. Like back in the days where you just had a few people showing up at an Ethereum Friends meetup saying like, hey, I just want to install an Ethereum miner on my gaming computer so I can get some ETH. And you just contribute, you start to plug the things, you pay a little bit of electricity, and you have some ETH, and that's cool. It turns out that now, if you want to get into anything that's Ether related, you first have to go on an exchange and buy Ether. Yeah. So your first contact with the asset is actually the ticker. The ticker is ETH, said someone famous. So yeah, and when you have this entry point, that's not a hobbyist entry point, but a buyer entry point. You just create an account on whatever centralized exchange, or yeah, usually you do that, and then you get into the meme coin stuff and the fun stuff around and the betting stuff and any weird tokens, and then you look at the ticker of Ethereum and you're like, oh wow, is this something I want to hold? Is this someone I want to participate in? So I doubt we can avoid to be more proactive in how we explain the project, in how we position the project, and how we get people to actually participate in the project. So solo staking is extremely important in that front, but also having a clear narrative on why you should hold ETH and why ETH is important is extremely strong. And we miss out on things that we took a lot of time to set out on the market, like, for example, the world computer, like shaping the thing, like, hey, it's a world computer. Even ultrasound money, like, okay, we wanted to position us as ultrasound money. So why ditch that for Infinite Garden and solar punk narratives, while creating those value and creating those reference points to the public is extremely long, and enforcing and creating a culture is extremely hard. While we didn't really push our history and our like value differently than just dancing on the stage and saying like, hey, we just, everybody's welcome, just show up and contribute. It's much harder to be in that position and pushing that when you're not alone anymore on the scene. Like when there is a lot of well-organized foundation that push hard for their own narrative.
Do you think that a culture element is kind of like it's run its course? Because kind of like I don't know whether you guys saw Tomasz's talk. Kind of like it was actually very entertaining. He kind of he ran us through his adventures trying to kind of on-chain some money on a fresh account, and kind of like everything didn't work. But this is the TLDR. So kind of do you think somehow this, but it's Ethereum culture kind of narrative kind of is stopping us from actually going out and, getting users?
We're not good at pushing our culture, I think. That's something I don't like about Ethereum. We're not that good at pushing our culture right now.
What do you think, Josh? You're kind of...
The question is, what is our culture?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's...
Credible neutrality, being welcoming.
That's a difficult culture to push.
How do I enact credible neutrality culture?
Exactly. Look, and for me, every time we try to bring a culture into an ecosystem, like we need to have reference points, we need to have examples, and we need to have some recurring celebration of things. Like Unfortunately, I think Bitcoin is a good example. Like we do pizza day. Hey, pizza day. Look, guys, we do pizza day. Every 22 of May, we do pizza day. Look, why pizza day? Oh, because this happened. I hope we get to celebrate the DAO hack. I hope we get to celebrate a couple of forks. I hope we get
the DAO hack.
Celebrate the DAO hack. Yeah, just a realization that sometimes on a computer that don't reboot for 10 years, like thing can happen. Like we can get together as validators of the network and say like, hey, this went wrong, and okay, let's change this. Let's celebrate the parity multisig hack. Oh, sometimes we don't change because we need to stay incredibly neutral.
I actually think that this is something that Ethereum does really well, is celebrating these things, because they do live streams for all of the upgrades. And like eStaker started doing that way back in the day, just because they were stoked about like the beacon chain going live. And I think that is like, I'm never so bullish on Ethereum, and I never feel as good as like when I get out of a live stream call, because they are so energetic.
The 1st of December, changing the consensus on the live chain. Like, come on, guys! This is rocket science engineering at scale, and safekeeping all of those value on chain at the same time. Diffusing the difficulty bonk 5 times. This is something we celebrate, because there's no proof of stake system that compares to Ethereum in terms of maturity. How hard it is? Well, it takes 5-year dedication and commitment to do that. Tell a last year engineering student about this, and we were like, oh wow, this is something I want to join. And suddenly the big values like credibly neutral, openness, research, and so on, that Ethereum as in the foundation want to embody, suddenly this become clear, this become real. Like, oh yeah, over the past 10 years, this is the adventure that you guys went on, and I want to be part of the next chapter. This is much more powerful than green flowers dance and just being nice. Like this is how we embody this culture, and this is what I think we should push more for, more embodiment of the culture in the history of Ethereum itself.
Yeah, I will say, and I hope this isn't a shot at you, but I will say that one thing that I find is really detrimental to communicating in culture is trying to put blockchain somewhere on the political spectrum, because blockchain is supposed to be credibly neutral. It's supposed to benefit everybody equally. And like, I think that people who are right or left keep like trying to like claim or disown crypto in general. And I think doing this isolates a lot of people and makes people believe things about crypto that aren't true. And I can tell you have like a response to this.
I've been I'm finished.
Josh,
I don't want to interrupt.
but I find my own, I find that like putting things on political spectrums generally is detrimental more so than constructive, because in a lot of the world right now, we love to place things on political spectrums, which is a way to divide people rather than a way to move something forward, and it makes people choose teams. And I find that Ethereum in general, even if you look at the specific issues that people on the right or the left care about, if you like isolate issues, you find that they agree on a lot more than they disagree on. But they focus on the things that they disagree on. And putting that somewhere on the political spectrum focuses on those things that they disagree on rather than the majority of issues where they agree.
So this is very complex. I think problem space to talk about. I think the problem is, I mean, I don't know. For me, the reality is that like everyone associates, a lot of people associate crypto with a very right-wing politics.
And you're a good foil.
That's kind of the...
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a good foil for that. I mean, I'm trying my best. But I think there's a lot of like very big powers that we have not really contended with very well. I mean, Coinbase sponsored the military parade in the US. I mean, this is something that's like, I mean, this is pretty bad optically. I think for like this is sending a signal to the world that like Coinbase, like a very big image, is on the side of like American imperial might. You know, it's
and communication around that was even worse.
Sure, yeah, you know, and Coinbase is not the only group that is a part of it. I mean, during the run up to the last election, it was very obvious. I mean, yeah, I guess I would fight back against the feeling that it's both the left and the right's fault for trying to claim. Like I would say that, you know, there's some arguments you can make that Ethereum, relative to other blockchains, generally there are people who are maybe more kind of like on the center left. I would say that's not crazy to say, and in comparison, but the bar is fairly low. I have to say, like if you saw the latest that the Solana advertisement and just like plenty of the people who are very big voices in what they've said outwardly, it does confer to a right-wing politics, and I think just maybe getting back to like the Ethereum Foundation changes, perhaps like. I do think that there was a lot of changes that probably needed to be made. I'm not like super privy to all the details and all the specifics and whatever else. I don't want to comment like too much on it, but clearly like there was a need for some sort of change because it kind of felt everyone was like, what does the Ethereum Foundation kind of do? What does it look like? What's the structure? How do I get help from them? Like that was always like that was often very not clear, but the Ethereum Foundation also did if like at least just once I started meeting more people in it and like seeing what they were working on, then I realized, the Ethereum Foundation actually made some pretty cool things and did some really interesting research. They did not really capitalize much on as well. Like there's ZKTLS is like one example. Like they basically created it and now there are a bunch of companies that are using it. And I don't know if the Ethereum Foundation is like getting much out of it, for example. And So I think there are some like legitimate critiques and some change needed. I think there's also, for me, a big question of whether or not this has become a reaction to price not going up. And that's kind of like the big question. I think that's like what caused the most amount of rage and anger and why like people had this like crazy behavior on Twitter and whatever else.
After Pectra, there was like this surge of like good feelings and everybody was like, Pectra went well, we're so happy. And I made a comment to somebody like, and like the vibes on crypto Twitter immaculate. And somebody was like, so the price is up.
The price. Yeah, but I think this is like a very serious like, thing to notice because like, okay, talking about culture, at least my view, like I definitely agree with a lot of what you said, but I think the root at what defines culture is like material reality. It's like economic reality defines culture in many ways. Or like nobody complains when we are performing at par with the rest of the market, of course.
Yeah.
Like cultural stance, defend Tornado Cash founders. Super strong cultural stand that the Ethereum Foundation took. How is it advertised? How is it being put into motion? Like if you talk to any great engineers or great to be engineers, you tell them, hey, we defend free code. Yeah, and concretely, what this translates to? It translates to this, and not sponsoring a military parade. Oh, yeah, sure, okay. That's extremely impactful. But at the same time, people were potentially reacting to some big institutions, some big major financial institutions, so public institutions going to work with a weird blockchain that we never heard of, or upcoming blockchains that were like, what is the foundation doing? Why aren't we part of the discussions? Yeah. And part of the latest strategy that the newest blockchain we're employing is elbowing their way and nudging their way really well to various regulators and various financial institutions. So behind the credible neutrality stance of the Ethereum Foundation, I think for a long time the EF refused, and I think still refused to talk to governments, talk to public institutions, talk to big banks, talk to those different bodies.
I will say about still refusing is that Tomasz has been open about the fact that he is talking to those institutions now.
That's great. And that's definitely a change that's ongoing and that's super positive, because usually when you look at this and you want to be credible, you either take I talk to everyone, and it's super hard to maintain, and it's super hard to accept to talk to everyone, including potential dictatorships and so on, and I'll talk to no one. And the sit in the middle that I'm open to talk to anyone and I will not lose my soul implies that you have people that are actually doing those talks that have very, very strong stance and are really credible in the way they implement it. And I do think it's a mistake to suppose that it's okay to say, hey, those different non-EF foundation are going to do it because we say they are good enough to do it. At the end of the day, you have the institutions that says, well, I've been talking to this foundation, that foundation, that foundation. We wanted to talk to the Ethereum Foundation, and we had Coinbase, Ethereum, and those guys. But that's not the EF, so they are not in control of the protocol. Even if we say we're not in the control of the protocol anyway at the EF, no, now the institution wants to talk to the EF, and not wanting to wave the Ethereum flag to those institutions is probably a mistake. And I'm glad to hear that Tomasz is doing the work anyway. You cannot really externalize that when all the other blockchains are doing it themselves, I think.
Josh, when we kind of look at kind of like how the ecosystem has evolved over the years, and I'm going somewhere with this. So, surprise. So in the very beginning, kind of, we talked about things like agency for individuals, right? We talked about shared ownership structures. We talked about large scale coordination, bottom up, and so on. And to me, these are very much not right-wing speaking points, right? Kind of like these are talking points for kind of the progressive left. But somehow we kind of left those people behind, or we alienated kind of like the non-crypto leftists by, I'm not entirely sure doing what, despite the fact that kind of if you look at, say, the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, in principle, kind of like on principle, she should love crypto, right? So where do you think we went wrong? And kind of like now kind of with speaking, the Ethereum Foundation kind of speaking with large banks and other institutions, is that good enough for kind of the common man? That's kind of the common user, right?
What's good enough for the common man?
This kind of emphasis shift to kind of speaking more with kind of the economically powerful players that are already out there, where kind of like in the beginning it was kind of more of a let's level this playing ground kind of feel. So where do you fall on that?
It's complicated. I mean, I think that, in my book, Blockchain Radicals, available in all bookstores online. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, she's an interesting character. I think she doesn't really, like, you place her in plenty of European countries. She's a center-right politician.
Absolutely. In Germany, she would be center-right for sure.
Yeah. So, I think it's really complicated when you're looking at specific countries and where they stand and what they're kind of going for. So, yeah, she is, the US, there's not very much of a left. It's still like constantly trying to grow, and then the Democrats destroying it. So that's hard to say. I think there's I had a big interest in the cryptocurrency world because of I would argue a more radical politics than someone like Elizabeth Warren. Like I do have plenty of critiques of the states. I have plenty of critiques of also capital. But a lot of kind of the thing is the image of who is on the left, oftentimes if you're getting that from a lot of news media and whatever else, like the people who can actually get into power, often places like the United States, don't necessarily represent what you would historically, if you read into the history of what is historically the left, it doesn't really particularly exist. And this is decades of plenty of strategies and policies that have kind of destroyed it in many ways. That would be too long to talk about here. But yeah, I think it's that there is this association as well of crypto with it simply being a pursuit for individual profit, and that oftentimes doesn't reflect, it doesn't combine well with kind of the traditional left-wing ethos of a type of collectivity. I think we had the moments with DAOs. There was a bunch of people who were like, oh, we can all own our, workplaces, and we're all going to it was a lot of people. What I found is that there was a kind of pipeline of people, kind of libertarians to socialists a little bit, as they got interested in DAOs, but then DAOs now have kind of not turned out necessarily the way I think that a lot of people expected it to. But I do think that generally there is a group of people on the left that I think would be very interested in the things that crypto has to offer. It just hasn't been packaged in the way to them that they can receive it.
So if I say, imagine a DAO as kind of an online cooperative, and kind of I take that to the left, do you think that is something that would kind of resonate?
For some, for sure, yeah. And I think it did. And it's definitely a lot of people that did happen to them, I think. And I had a lot of friends who got interested in that specifically. The difficulty, I think, in the next step, perhaps in a more practical sense, maybe onboarding and the economic reality, Tomas's talk probably showed how difficult it is to onboard these types of people who are very not necessarily tech people, but they love the ideas and the concepts. So it's how do we make a flow to where we can package it to them? Hey, this is something that's interesting for you and the things that you want to pursue. And also it's not that complicated to do it.
It also just doesn't play well when you talk about like DAOs being this online cooperative, and then you look at how DAOs have practically paid out, and most of them don't work. And so I think a lot of the people who are coming in on that, and they're like, oh, this is broken. DAOs are a primitive product right now. They're a building block. And I think that something cool will come out of it eventually, but I don't think that most of them are functional right now.
This should be very attractive to leftist anarchists.
Yes.
That was an organization.
100%.
In most of the country, from my personal perspective, like the leftist anarchists have been absorbed by the left in a resonating style, an echo chamber for the left, and so like they don't really need a way to organize and to be more vocal. They are already there and active this way in the shadow or sometimes in the forefront of the left, and attractive for that. I can tell you a little bit from the French politics perspective. Like in the French political spectrum, the left anarchists are almost disappeared. There's no more real big communist party in France. The left, like the socialists as a whole, from La France Insoumise to the socialists, they both hate crypto to the ground. Like they hate it, and they've been extremely vocal and extremely against it. I think from a pure philosophical standpoint, like one of the biggest changes that crypto is bringing is a new form of ownership. You own through cryptographic standpoints. And so it's a type of ownership that's not given by the state. So it's not easy to control. So it's not easy to tax and redistribute. So and it's also going against our capacity to impose our money and impose our thing that we mint ourselves. Okay, I hate crypto, and it's for I will go and push all the narratives against crypto, whether it is money laundering, terrorism, and so on. Anti-crypto. And they've been very, very vocal against it and very, very acting against it. At the other side of the spectrum, the far right, they're like, looks like people are embracing crypto in the US and they are close to our thinking, so we should be pro-crypto. And it turns out that the far right has had a lot of difficulty to fund their campaign, to go talk to banks to fund their campaign. So when they hear about own the bank, pawn the bank, be your own bank, they're like, yeah, we'd love to be our own bank. So today the far right is like, yeah, crypto, why not? And having the far right saying crypto, why not, makes the left say like crypto, definitely not. And so at the middle ground, like the right, the conservative right or the central right are like, so crypto is good for innovation in business, so we should be pro-blockchain, but at the same time, we don't want to associate ourselves too much with the far right, but we want to differentiate from the far left and the left. So
see, this is the problem.
It's become something hard to.
This is the problem that I'm talking about, though, is that like people place it on the spectrum, either left or right, and they don't talk about the actual like technology. And so like one word what we haven't even mentioned is cypherpunk values.
Yeah,
and I think cypherpunk values are quite apolitical.
Yep.
Even though a lot of people in the cypherpunk community have...
Josh is...
It's hyper-political, actually. Yeah.
I disagree. I think...
Depends on how you define politics.
One of the biggest issues in our entire society right now is how our data is handled. And it is something that I think everybody in the world can agree that like they want their data to be more private. They want their data to be better protected.
Actually, most people don't care. This is surprising. Kind of like almost no one actually cares. I mean,
nobody wants to be inconvenienced. They care.
But they don't. But they don't even I don't think it's even about the inconvenience. So kind of like if you kind of look at kind of like what percentage of the population kind of has a Gmail address rather than kind of say Proton Mail or something privacy preserving, which offers the exact same user experience at the exact same cost, i.e. zero.
I disagree that they're the exact same user experience because Gmail is integrated everywhere and like it's just easier to use Gmail. Proton Mail is a conscious choice that you have to make. You can't use like the G Suite, the single sign-on. And it's people just don't want to be inconvenienced. If you make privacy easy, if you give people two choices and privacy is included in one of them and they're exactly equal, people will choose the privacy one.
I'm not entirely sure because I've heard people say too many times, I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's not about. You agree?
Oh yeah, I mean I've had people say that like multiple. Right, I talked to like my one of my brothers like you think about privacy. He's like, oh, I have nothing to hide. It's fine.
Yeah.
But you have to. But you like when you everybody's been affected by data leaks in some way. Like if you talk to people about what they get in their email inbox. people will start ranting. They'll be like, oh, I get so much junk mail. It's like such a pain in the ass. But if you talk to them about like, oh, you can have a privacy email that creates like an alias that forwards to your address, and you can delete it if somebody starts sending you junk mail. Like people are like, I've talked to a lot of people about that, and they're like, how do I do that? And if it's too hard, they won't do it. But if it's an option, they want it. And like, there are so many ways that you can talk about how data is leaked that will grab people. And like, that is one of the things that blockchain could potentially be really good for, or potentially be really dystopian for.
Yeah, 100%.
And that is
go either way, right?
Yes. And like, if we end up being Solana centric in crypto, I think that it will be very dystopian. And I think if we end up being Ethereum centric, I think it'll hopefully veer more towards being like really ideal for data protection. But I think like, if you grab people with that kind of narrative rather than like, this is left or this is right, it's a lot easier to get people on board with that.
I think it's really hard to get people to care. So kind of, I think if you look at, for instance, say VPN usage, right? 19 out of 20 people use VPN because they want to watch something on Netflix that's not available in their region. No one uses it kind of to protect their private, maybe 5%.
It's
right?
In the ass.
I mean, is this...
Everybody blocks them.
Okay, in 2 weeks ago in France, we had a law that blocked every pornographic website because they had to enforce specifically, very, 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 very specifically, to make sure that the people that are watching are over 18. So it was the best publicity you can bring to VPN. Like, oh yeah, well, I have to switch to a VPN, and you go to a porn website and it shows you like, hey, sorry, like the news now in France, we cannot show you this website because we don't want to enforce whatever thing. Like, so go talk to your politician to remove this stupid law, or use a VPN. Okay, well, then people will use VPN. And you see a spike in usage on VPN. So like,
you have a need, kind of, you start using a VPN, kind of, people don't use it to protect their privacy. Typically, it's...
they use it to consume.
They don't use it to protect their privacy because it's a pain in the ass. You have to learn how to use a VPN. And honestly, like, once everybody starts using a VPN, then companies start blanket banning those IP addresses that are associated with a VPN. And so it's actually like really useful to use a VPN that no one else uses, because then the IP addresses aren't blocked. And as soon as somebody runs into a technical problem and they have to troubleshoot, they're like, this is way too much of a pain in the ass. I don't care that much. Take my data, whatever.
Yeah, you can get a VPN inside DAppNode.
Gnosis VPN is launched.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Nice.
It will be doing God's work, expanding the network, making
That's
it more
awesome.
resilient.
Did not know.
Yeah.
Then maybe let's talk about user experience, okay? I think this is kind of like the topic that's still missing kind of from the Ethereum Foundation restructuring. So we already talked about transparency but kind of like the focus on user experience, and this is also kind of like the vein that Tomáš's talk was in, kind of like, look how terrible this is to use. How can we find this acceptable? Okay, you're shaking your head.
Oh, I hate and I love this topic. I think we had I cannot be extremely vocal on that front publicly, because as a competitor to most of the wallet as a service where you log in through a Gmail login, ComF has a account abstraction SDK. So for the past 3 years, the only onboarding that were visible in the space was like, hey, wallet as a service, go put your email address, and then you get an MPC address. People are washing their hands like, we are non-custodial. Non-custodial? What does it even mean? We don't care. We don't take any responsibility. We will just give you an address so you can do things with the address. Like, and what happened with the data of the users? Oh, we take everything, but don't even look at the terms and conditions. Nobody look at it. So we had 3 years of this being pushed at scale on various projects for retail. Yeah, one time addresses with maybe one single NFT, one single ERC20, blunting the state at the end of the day for the EVM. Really bad onboarding, no interactions cross products, bad pricing, bad everything. And at the end of the day, you have an address to just store one thing that you're not even going to use anytime. And you still have to go through the whole steps of just buying the crypto, getting the crypto on the address, doing the thing in the... At the same time, we were pushing hard for account abstraction and trying to figure out the standards, and having a lot of trouble with the standards. A couple of competing EIPs and things. now we have to realize that no, the account abstraction was the right way all along, and we have EIPs in the 2 digits that were already talking about that 7 years ago. So we left the lane open for wallet as a service to chime in and give a poor experience that we now have to over-engineer to counteract. It's really bad. It's really bad that we had this. But like both the two sides of the spectrum, two competing projects, like Circles is doing account abstraction, WorldCoin is doing account abstraction. Like, okay, everybody is doing account abstraction. Even the very successful product like Polymarket are doing account abstraction their way. So look, like account abstraction is the way. This is how we should have done it in the first place, instead of being stuck in a second best with a wallet as a service with not privacy preserving logins in the first place. That's really bad.
So what you're kind of a proponent of is kind of having a smart account that kind of you have different logins for, and kind of in kind of, we can also talk about commerce here. So kind of like what you guys provide is the solution to kind of integrate, kind of let passkeys hold private keys, right? So I can kind of have a passkey that kind of controls my smart contract.
My dream scenario would be that every single application on the blockchain would have a smart account for each of their users.
To be fair, like these are upgrades that are either have just been integrated into Ethereum or are coming. So like, I don't know specifics, but like the R1 curve is something that is being integrated next upgrade. And that will be something that will be enabling to passkeys and account abstraction. There was just a big unlock in Pectra that was 7702 that allows delegation. So smart contracts are about to get a lot better. And like once wallets integrate these
applications have to integrate it. Like you go on any applications and the application tells you like, hey, you're a new user. Cool. Here is your smart account. Just delegate to this smart account for the sake of this specific transaction. I'm going to handle the gas fees for you because I'm being paid for the value that I'm bringing you. So I have one smart account per application. That's great. At the end of the day, what happened in the past 3 years is that the major DeFi apps went on to say like, hey, should I use a wallet as a service? No, I'm going to build my own wallet. Okay, that was kind of bad. But I'm happy to hear that R1 is going to be integrated soon. Like in the past, like new cryptographic primitives on the EVM has been really hard to push, because initially the first new primitive that was integrated as a native contracts were precompiles were not really used, like the alternative hashes, that thing. So the core devs were reasonably pushing against it. Like what we do, that's like we should have this on the rollups first and see if it flies, and if it flies, we should get that in. I commented a lot on the EIP 1271 for R1. ComF has been one of the first to implement the verification of the R1 signature in Solidity, and contributing to the different steps of optimization. At the end of the day, passkeys are a hack around WebAuthn to have people sign in a way that they are in control of their keys. I think it's right now the second best thing that we have. Like we cannot accept that the average Joe is going to install a wallet, note down 12 words, and learn the new security modules. They are already socially trained of using their biometric on their phone a lot, and safekeeping things in the enclave is good enough for the credit card, so it should be good enough for a key that activates a smart account. And it's so smooth to onboard people this way. It's so hard for wallet as a service and wallets to make a business on top of it. But who cares? Like, people are already equipped with the device to store the passkeys. So all in on passkeys, it's a very good way to sign.
I mean, I totally agree. And kind of we heavily rely on your passkey solution for Metri, the kind of the Circles wallet. And I have been complimented on kind of like easy onboarding many times at this conference. But I have to say, you need a password manager. So kind of if you don't use a password manager, you're in trouble, right? Kind of like passkey. And I think a lot of people don't understand that that's kind of a bottleneck. And obviously you then again, and obviously you can choose kind of your password manager yourself, but kind of there's a limited number of options. And
I'm going to say this is another place where I go back to people care about data, private, if you make it easy. Like if you ask most people if they use a password manager who have iPhones, they say, what's a password manager? But they're using a password manager. They just don't know that they're using one. You just have to build it in, and they will use these things as long as you build it in and make it easy.
That's the point with passkeys. Like the first question we get when we push passkeys to a new customer as ComF is like, what is the recovery process? So the recovery process usually is either your password manager, and honestly, it's really hard to encompass all the different hiccups that you end up working with on supporting all the different password managers. And I think this is something we did very good. But anyway, if people don't have a password manager, like you don't show one password or whatever guard and so on, by default, the manager of the enclave is the OS. So you end up with the OS managing the enclave. So it boils down to Google encrypting and safekeeping your enclave. So you rely on your Google login to get back your passkey. So what is the default recovery method? The recovery method of your Gmail account. If you're on iPhone, what is the default recovery method? Is iOS, iCloud. So at the end of the day, the passkey belongs to the user, but it's being handled by the OS and those big corporations that already equipped everyone. So it's very hard to bypass them. But indeed, if you have one password and you want to save your passkeys inside, it will definitely work with ComF.
What are the kind of like, if you had a wish list for the coming 12 months, kind of these are the concrete UX improvements kind of we need to kind of have real users kind of use these things. So kind of top of my list would actually be better on and off ramps. So kind of making it easier to kind of, because currently kind of the default way is kind of going via centralized exchange, right? But in principle, this shouldn't have to be the solution. And within Europe, we kind of have identifying your wallet with an IBAN, and then kind of you can do the same in Brazil and so on. And I think that would open up kind of the market by a very large degree. What are your things that kind of you wish kind of we would adopt or see in the next 12 months to kind of increase actual adoption by actual people?
I would say a lot of it's around wallets, because people are really uncomfortable holding their own keys. And so like this account abstraction issue and the things that are being enabled is just going to be like a huge unlock for people. Nobody wants to hold. I onboarded someone onto MetaMask, a friend of mine, non-crypto native person, and I gave him this 12-word seed and I was like, write this down, do not show it to anyone, keep it safe, do not lose it. And next time we were on FaceTime, he picks up this 12-word seed.
Look, I still have it.
Like, I still have it. And I was like, no. So, yeah, I think it doesn't...
The NSA was like, oh my God.
It doesn't cross people's mind that, like, I shouldn't show it on camera.
It's also kind of like people have ledgers, but kind of the little card that it comes with, kind of like where write down most people actually keep that card next to the ledger, which kind of, and because it comes in the box, right? It fits in the box. So it's,
They made it too ergonomic.
Yeah.
The EIP 1271 R1 curve support will definitely be really good for that.
Oh,
really good for the adoption. I mean, to answer the initial question from it was definitely on my wish list. So yeah, thank you. Now I've been in the space for quite a while now, so I try to be the man in the mirror and like try to embody this kind of changes. So my current occupation at bringing the adoption, like my small contribution, is trying to distribute the cheapest, most efficient way to get a custodian with an opt-out of kicking out the custodian. So this is where I stand today. I'm trying to expose a custodian infrastructure that is really cheap, really easy to integrate, and so on. That is account abstraction first, and that you get option to pick different keys. And if at some point you feel more comfortable using a ledger as a signer on top of a smart contract or on top of an alternative L1 to Ethereum, like go for it and have it. Like we're trying different ways to onboard different people, and having a custodian in the loop at first is an extremely good way of getting swift onboarding. You get an IBAN, you get to buying stable coins with credit card would be also something really cool on the wish list. Because currently, like, you either go with a centralized exchange, so you have to create an account and blah 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 blah, and you get stuck into there's trading, there's leverage trading, and so on, and you get into the rabbit hole. Or you go with a on-ramp service that takes credit card. The fees related to this on-ramp is usually pretty high.
Yeah.
You need to go through the old KYC and so on. While it should be looming really closely that we will be able to buy stablecoin with credit card. And
I have another wish list item.
Yes.
95, I would say even higher than 95. 99% of this space is people extracting money and getting scammed. And there is like a 1% that people are advertising. They're like, this cool technology, like come put your money with me. And then they extract that money. It is so easy to get scammed in this industry. You interact with a contract and like a legit contract looks the same to you as a scam contract. And so have you ever used Rabby Wallet? Rabby Wallet is amazing for this. Yeah. It like makes you go through all these checks. It's like, this contract was created yesterday. Like, does this look legit to you? And I really hope that becomes more of a feature, like all of these built-in like rails that keep people safe who maybe don't know what a legit contract looks like.
This is also one of the main things kind of like we're building with Safe right now, kind of like making sure no one ever signs anything that they don't understand. Because I've blind signed many times.
Oh yeah,
and everyone does it, kind of like independently verifying the payload. It's impossible if it's not something super. It's not something super simple or kind of you're very dedicated. And obviously, you should be very dedicated in certain scenarios. But kind of fact of the matter is, people don't do it. And I mean, we've seen this time and time again. So kind of like having a human readable kind of interpretation of what you're signing is
changing the internet hygiene. This is the kind of social change that we can embody in the ecosystem. Like, look, guys, you are asking yourself the question before having unprotected sex. So, like, before doing something weird on the internet, before signing something weird, like you should have a look, like ask a couple of questions, take a look at in the blockchain.
Like, even I can
internet hygiene.
Yeah, I consider myself quite an advanced user, but like when the Bybit hack happened, I was like, I have no idea how to conduct a safe transaction that like I know is legit. So I had to do all this research, and now I use like 2 different tools when signing a safe transaction because I'm like, all right, I got to make sure that it's actually going to the address that I think it's going to, and I got to make sure that all the data.
It's really scary.
Yes.
Yeah. Josh, you didn't get your one wish item, so kind of
I agree.
End on that.
Agree with everything that was said, and I think having tools for making it easier for collectives to also take part in crypto, I think is like one thing that I would love to see, and one just out there thing I think is we need some sort of education for people about a lot of this stuff. I think part of the reason is that people are there's no like standard technological education, and like what I know about technology is just shit I read on the internet. Sure.
Yeah.
We need something better than that.
I think those are fantastic closing words. Thank you so much for participating in this panel. And we'll be back next week with the regular episode.
All right. See you in Cannes. Thank you.